Welcome to this deep dive, into the Untethered Soul.
By Michael A. Singer.
Yeah, by Michael A. Singer. And instead of like a typical book review, we're really going to kind of go beyond the pages and see how its wisdom, applies to you.
Mm-hmm.
So think of it as like a guided tour of your own inner world,
Yeah.
inspired by Singer's insights.
Absolutely. I think it's so fascinating how Singer takes these really profound spiritual ideas and makes them so relatable and accessible.
Yeah.
He starts with something that we all experience,
Right.
which is that constant voice in our heads.
Oh, yeah.
Our inner roommate, as he calls it.
Okay, I have to admit, the first time I read that phrase, I laughed out loud.
Yeah.
My inner roommate
Right.
might be a bit much sometimes.
Right. And Singer uses all these funny examples of how this voice kind of just narrates everything.
Yes.
Even simple observations,
Mm.
like, oh, look, a golden retriever, or, that's a 2023 Honda Accord.
But here's the thing. Do we really need this running commentary?
Right.
I mean, we're already sitting in the world directly.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's like my mind is trying to explain to me what my eyes are already seeing.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed your mind doing this? Like, what's your inner roommate like?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mine tends to be a bit of a worrier.
Oh, yeah.
Always kind of anticipating problems before they even arise.
Yes. Mine too.
Mine too.
That's a common one. And that's where things start to get really interesting, because Singer doesn't just point out this inner roommate.
Right.
He actually highlights how its advice is often terrible.
Yeah.
It's negative. It's prone to freaking out.
Yeah,
It's always
yeah.
stirring up drama.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. He gives this great example of the inner voice panicking on the way to a wedding.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what if this is a mistake? What am I even doing here?
What am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that?
Oh, all the time. It's like my inner roommate tries to convince me I'm making a terrible decision, even when deep down I know it's the right one.
Exactly. And that's the key.
Yeah.
How would we react if somebody else said those things to us?
Totally. We'd be like,
Yeah.
What are you talking about? This is going to be great.
Exactly. We'd probably think they were being ridiculous.
Yeah.
So why do we take this unreliable, often neurotic inner voice so seriously?
It's like we're taking advice from someone who's consistently wrong.
Yeah.
If you think about it, how many times has your inner voice predicted disaster and then nothing even happened?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this raises a really important question.
Yeah.
If this inner roommate is so unreliable, then who are we really?
Right.
If we're not our thoughts, if we're not our emotions,
Yeah.
if we're not this mental chatter,
Yeah.
then what defines us?
Right. And that's where Singer leads us on this really thought-provoking journey to explore the true nature of the self. And he starts with the obvious, like our names, our jobs, our relationships.
Right. The things we typically identify with.
But he shows how each definition falls short. He uses these kind of dialogues where he's trying on different identities, and he's like, I'm Sally Smith, but then he's like, no, I'm Frank Smith's wife.
Right.
No, I'm the body occupying this space.
Yeah.
And each time it's like the definition crumbles under scrutiny.
It just doesn't quite fit.
It doesn't fit. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah. It's not about finding a new definition.
Yeah.
It's about realizing that the true I is something beyond
Yes.
all these temporary labels and roles.
Yes. And so this leads us to, I think, a really crucial question that lies at the heart of the book and at the heart of our deep dive today, which is, if not these things, then who are you?
Yeah.
What remains when all the thoughts and emotions and the external experiences fade away?
That's the big question. And to answer that, Singer introduces this concept of the center of consciousness,
Right.
the silent observer. That sits behind all of our thoughts and emotions.
Right.
You've probably experienced this even if you don't formally meditate.
Yeah.
Those moments of stillness.
Yes.
Where there's just this awareness, this presence. That's what he's talking about.
I love how he puts it. He's like, you live in the seat of consciousness. From back in here somewhere, I look out and I'm aware.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's such a powerful image.
It is.
It's as if our thoughts and emotions and the external world are all just objects arrayed before this inner observer.
Yeah.
And recognizing yourself as the observer
Yes.
rather than the content of your experiences
Yes.
can be incredibly liberating.
It's like realizing you're the sky and thoughts are just clouds passing through.
Exactly.
The sky remains even when the clouds come and go.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
And this shift in perspective allows us to detach from that constant mental chatter.
Yes.
And begin to disentangle our true selves from the fluctuations of the mind.
Yes. I love that. But Singer doesn't stop there.
No, he doesn't.
He also dives into this concept of the spiritual heart,
Yes.
which he distinguishes from the physical heart.
Right. It's not about the organ that pumps blood.
Right. It's something deeper.
It's an energetic center.
Okay.
And this heart, according to Singer, is a source of energy and feeling. But it can become blocked by our clinging to or resisting experiences.
Oh, yeah. He calls these energetic knots samskaras?
Exactly. And what's interesting is it's not just negative experiences that create them.
Right. That's what I was going to say. It's like the positive ones, too.
Positive ones, too.
Yeah.
Think about it. You know, you might be holding on to resentment from a past argument.
Right.
But you could also be clinging to a happy memory.
Yeah.
Preventing yourself from fully experiencing the present moment.
Right.
It's like, can you feel that tension in your heart?
Yeah.
What would it be like to release it?
It's almost like we're afraid to let go of those feel-good memories.
Right.
But that grip itself might be a kind of blockage. You know, and on the flip side, we cling to negative experiences like they define us.
Yeah.
It makes me think about all the times I've replayed an embarrassing moment over and over in my head. Like, why did we do that? We'll talk more about letting go in just a bit.
Okay.
But first, let's explore this idea of the spiritual heart a little further.
Okay, cool. I'm in it.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about these energetic blockages in the spiritual heart. And what I'm curious about is like, how do we actually start to release them?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
Right? Well, Singer's advice is surprisingly simple,
All right.
though not necessarily easy.
Okay.
He says to start small.
Okay.
You know, notice the little things that bother you throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone cuts you off in traffic.
Yeah.
Or takes the last cookie from the jar.
Uh-huh.
Are you willing to just let those things go?
It sounds so basic, but I can already feel the resistance.
Yeah.
It's like that tiny annoyance, that little seed of anger or frustration somehow feels justified. Right. That's the ego at work.
Yeah.
Trying to protect itself.
Yeah.
It wants to be, right? It wants to hold on to those grievances.
Yeah.
But Singer argues that true freedom comes from letting go, even of those seemingly justified annoyances.
So instead of like getting all worked up about that stolen cookie,
Yeah.
I should just shrug it off.
It's more than just shrugging it off.
Okay.
It's about becoming aware of the feeling, noticing that tightening in your chest or that surge of irritation,
Yeah.
and then consciously choosing to relax and release.
It's like training myself to respond differently to those triggers. Instead
Yeah.
of getting hooked by the drama,
Exactly.
I can choose to just observe it and let it go.
Right. You become the witness.
Yeah. Do you have any practices that help you with this?
One thing that helps me is remembering that my thoughts and emotions aren't me.
Okay.
You know, they're like guests passing through.
Okay.
I can acknowledge them
Yeah.
without letting them take over.
Right.
You know, Singer compares it to having a thorn stuck in your arm. You could spend all your time protecting that thorn, afraid to remove it because of the pain,
Right.
but wouldn't you be freer without it?
That's such a powerful image. It makes me think about all the ways I'm protecting my own thorns.
Yeah.
You know, those painful memories or grudges I keep holding on to. Like, what's really striking is how he applies this concept to both positive and negative experiences.
Exactly. We can get just as attached to pleasant memories,
Right.
clinging to them as a way to avoid facing the present moment.
Totally.
You know, it's like refusing to let go of a beautiful sunset
All right.
because you're afraid of what the darkness might bring.
It's so counterintuitive.
Right.
We think holding on to happiness
Yeah.
will make us happier,
Right.
but maybe it's actually preventing us
Yeah.
from experiencing even greater joy.
Singer argues that the key is to be open to all of it. The good, the bad, the joyful, the painful. It's about allowing life to flow through us without getting caught up in the eddies and whirlpools of our reactions.
Wow. It's like becoming the river.
Yeah.
Instead of the debris that gets tossed around in the current.
Exactly.
But how do we cultivate that level of openness? Like, how do we get there?
It starts with awareness. You know, Singer encourages us to notice the edges of our comfort zones,
Okay.
those places where we feel resistance, fear, or the urge to shut down.
Oh, I definitely have those. Public speaking is a big one for me.
Mhm.
My inner roommate goes into overdrive with all sorts of worst case scenarios.
Right. We all have those areas where we feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
And Singer suggests that these are precisely the places
Okay.
where we can experience the most growth.
Interesting.
He compares our comfort zone to a cage,
Okay.
even if it's a comfortable cage.
Yeah.
He even says, a paranoid person might prefer a tiger cage
Okay.
because it feels safe.
It's a funny image, but it makes a point.
It does.
We cling to what's familiar,
Yeah.
even if it's limiting,
Yeah.
because venturing beyond feels scary.
Right.
But that's where real transformation happens, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stepping outside that cage,
Yeah.
facing our fears, that's how we expand our consciousness.
Okay.
And that leads us to, I think, the ultimate aim of the spiritual journey, as Singer describes it,
Okay.
which is moving beyond the limitations of our self-created models of reality.
Right. It's like breaking free from our house of thoughts.
Yeah. He describes it as breaking free from our house of thoughts
Yeah.
and stepping out into the infinite expanse of consciousness.
He uses this beautiful analogy of imagine your house of thoughts standing in the middle of an ocean of starlight.
Yes.
And the walls crumble and your consciousness expands into that brilliance.
It's about recognizing that everything is interconnected,
Yeah.
that our perception creates boundaries where none truly exist.
And that's the invitation Singer extends to us,
Right.
to examine the mental models that we're clinging to and consider what it would mean to go beyond them.
To let go of the limitations.
Yeah. To step out of the cage of our comfort zone.
Yeah,
And into the vast unknown territory of our true nature.
absolutely.
Yeah.
This brings us to one of Singer's most thought-provoking concepts,
Okay, hit me.
the idea of unconditional happiness. Are you ready to explore that?
I think so. Let's do it. Unconditional happiness.
Okay.
It sounds amazing, but is it even possible?
Right.
Life throws curveballs.
Yeah.
How can we be happy when things are tough?
That's the challenge that Singer presents, and it's a pretty radical one.
Yeah.
He's basically asking, do you want to be happy or not?
Yeah.
And it sounds so simple, but the truth is we often make our happiness conditional on things.
Yeah, it's I'll be happy when I get that promotion.
Exactly.
Or I'll be happy when I find the perfect partner, or, whatever it is.
Right. But that kind of happiness is always fleeting. It's always dependent on these external factors
Right.
that we can't control. What Singer's proposing is choosing happiness as a state of being,
Sure.
regardless of your circumstances.
So even when things are falling apart, we can still choose to be happy.
Yeah. It's not about denying the reality of difficult situations.
Yep.
It's about recognizing that your happiness doesn't have to be a reaction to them.
Okay. So it's more like an internal thing.
Yeah. He calls this the highest spiritual technique.
Wow.
No rituals, no special knowledge.
Uh-huh.
Just a commitment to joy no matter what.
He even says that committing to happiness leads to enlightenment.
Right.
That's a bold statement.
It is,
Right.
but it kind of makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
If you're truly committed to happiness,
Yeah.
you have to let go of everything that stands in its way.
Okay.
The negativity, the complaining,
Mm.
the clinging to how things should be.
It's we're constantly choosing love over fear,
Yeah.
joy over suffering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Singer uses this playful image of God coming down to earth and asking people, how are you doing?
Okay.
And, most people would have this laundry list of complaints.
Right.
But he suggests that God would much rather be around people who are happy, who are enjoying life.
So it's not about pretending everything is perfect.
Right.
It's more about shifting our focus to the good, to the beautiful, to the things that bring us joy,
Exactly.
even amidst the challenges.
Yeah. It's about seeing the world through the loving eyes of God, as Singer puts it,
I like that.
with compassion, understanding, acceptance.
Yeah.
Instead of judging and criticizing,
Mm-hmm.
you start to appreciate the uniqueness of every being and every experience.
We start to see the interconnectedness of all things.
Yeah.
The divine spark that exists in everything and everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the Untethered Soul is ultimately guiding us towards.
Yeah.
It's a life lived in alignment with our true nature, free from the limitations of the ego.
Yes.
A life filled with unconditional happiness and love.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with the same question that Singer poses to his readers, which is, if you commit to unconditional happiness, regardless of external circumstances, what might change in your life? It's something to ponder, to experiment with, and just see what unfolds.
It's a journey worth taking. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving into